And I started developing self-love without even trying at first. That wasn't the goal. I didn't even realize that's what was happening. And that's the thing. If you want to feel self-love, the very first step you need to do is first feel. I'm talking feel everything. And all of a sudden, it's like, the only way I could describe it is that it's like the floodgates just opened. Like, it's like my heart was really closed, and instantly the door opened and instantly the floodgates just opened. And I had this overwhelming sense of feeling love. It was powerful. It was intense. And so I'm just laying there and I'm cuddling my husband and I'm realizing how much I love him. I feel like I fell in love with him all over again. We've been together about 10 years. Just totally, fully in love with him. And a little before that, I was finally feeling in love with myself. Not in a narcissistic way. Not in like, I'm going to look in the mirror and admire how beautiful I am. It was I feel love for myself. I'm in love with myself on a soul level. I'm in love with my soul for the first time. So find a way to... Hello, beautiful beings of light. My name is Monica. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be titled A Higher Guide to Self-Love. The reason why I decided to do this topic today, for a couple of reasons actually, the last 48 hours for me have been very altering, very life-changing. I definitely had another stage in my spiritual awakening journey, a very, very crucial stage, which happens to be finding self-love or discovering it for the first time, I believe, in my adult life. As crazy as that sounds. And like I said, it was crazy intense, but in a very, very good way. And it was perfectly, divinely timed and guided that a viewer had reached out to me on the day that I had discovered this true self-love. And at first they were just thanking me for my videos, which I always love. And then I felt guided to ask them if there was anything I could do for them or anything they wanted to talk about. I could listen if they wanted any advice on something. Especially because at this point I was laying in bed and I could not sleep at all. So I definitely felt like I had the capacity right then to like help somebody if they needed help or wanted help. And they said that my videos are already super helpful, and then they said, but they would like to hear what I have to say about how to self-love, how to love yourself. And I was so excited. Because I was like, okay, this is definitely a synchronicity right now, because I told them, if you had asked me yesterday, I would not have an answer for you. I thought I knew, but I really didn't know. And so I told them I would, thank you so much for asking for advice on this. This is perfect. And I would be happy to film a video on it. So that's why we're making this video today. If you're new to my channel, I teach by example. I go through a lot of different experiences, and then I try to find the lessons that I've learned that help me in the future. So I basically made this channel mostly so that I could share this wisdom that I gain from going through a lot of my experiences. A lot of them can be very difficult, and I always feel like I learned something super valuable from them, and I love to share it, and I definitely like to teach. I think we're all teachers and students. I am going to start off like I usually do with a story of what happened to me, and hopefully that something in there will help you guys as well, or something will click. So, when I found self-love 48 hours ago, I wasn't necessarily looking for it. I think it wasn't something that I was trying to achieve. I thought I had loved myself for the most part, and I was generally pretty happy. I was pretty content for the most part. But I had been feeling very ungrounded, and I felt very disconnected from my life. I felt very numb in a way that like I wasn't fully feeling anything, any emotions. It's like kind of half feeling them. And I was feeling sad or, down or just discontent because I was feeling so disconnected, and I didn't know why. I couldn't figure it out. And I was trying to figure it out by doing a lot of my spiritual practices. I've been reading spiritual books, and I have watched so many spiritual YouTubers, and I bought a lot of crystals, and I've been grounding with my feet on the earth. I've been sun gazing. I've been doing all the things, and I still wasn't feeling really fully connected, I guess, to like my spirit, my spiritual side. So then I just had this instinct to take a week of social media detox, which I do every once in a while. So I stopped getting on social media. I also decided to stop watching TV, except for like one show with my husband in the evening. And that was it. So maybe like 25 minutes of TV. And so for the rest of the time, when I wasn't cooking, cleaning, doing my errands, or busy doing something, I would basically just sit and be present. I would try to meditate and just observe my thoughts and just relax into the present moment. And I ended up doing that naturally after a while without trying. It's like everything before then was like practice. And for the first time, I really felt like I got into a meditative state really quickly. Like my thoughts in my mind just slowed down, and I started to hear what I would say my heart for the first time. Not like the heartbeat, but just like, let me try to explain it this way. It's like we have multiple voices in our head, or multiple voices that we hear. And I know people say, if you hear voices, then you're going crazy, you're schizophrenic or something, you need to get that checked out. What I mean is like your head, your ego, your mind, your conscious mind has like its own voice. It has its own thoughts that it just keeps thinking. A lot of times it's just on repeat in a cycle, that it's like this track, also with your subconscious mind, that just keeps playing, and we just keep thinking the same thoughts over and over and over and over again every single day. They're typically the same thoughts, and unfortunately a lot of them are habitually negative, depending, I would say, on how much work you've done to expand your consciousness to become aware of it. And then we have our intuition, our heart voice. That is a separate voice. And our intuition is more like a whisper. It is very soft. It's very calm. It's very gentle. It's very loving. And it's more of a response. And our head, our ego, our mind tends to be very loud, very reactive, and can operate a lot in fear, fearful thoughts that evoke these fearful emotions and reactions in us and dictate the way that we live our life, how we react to things, or the actions that we take, the things that we end up manifesting unconsciously. And I like to think of it as this example of, let's say you're in an office and someone is, actually I think I did see something like this on the show The Office. We've been watching that lately. And the character Dwight, he yells fire to everyone in the office, and he started smoke or something, like a small fire in a trash can, and then he had the smoke go under the door. And so this is the very beginning of the episode, and everyone is like freaking out. People are climbing in the ceilings and breaking things, and I think threw like a printer out a window. I mean, it just got chaotic. And there wasn't an actual fire. There was a little controlled fire in a teeny tiny trash can. And it was just smoke that they were seeing. They didn't even see the fire. And so I think of our minds can kind of be like that. If we don't learn to observe it until it's talked out and it kind of gets quieter, it's just all this commotion and chatter. It's like, oh my goodness, save the women and children, and there's a fire, we got to get out of here, we're all going to die. And then there's our heart, our intuition. There's someone in, like Dwight could have been in the background and been like, actually, guys, this is just a fire drill. I wanted to see how prepared you were, which is what he was doing. But no one could hear him because of all the chaos and the screaming. So our heart, our intuition, I feel like doesn't yell at us. I think there are times it does get louder for some people when they need to make an immediate decision, like it says, turn around, or don't go there, stay home. There's certain things like that where it's a very strong inkling, but it's typically not like, oh my gosh, you gotta stay home, you can't do this, you can't go anywhere, sort of thing. That's our head. And so I realized I wasn't hearing my intuition as much, or my heart. Like at times I would here and there, but it wasn't very clear for me. And I couldn't make the distinction. But after a while, like I said, I felt like I was meditating for the first time, and I would hear, the voice, the thoughts in my head, my normal everyday chatter. And then that quieted down, and then all of a sudden it's like this other voice, like I said, I could just hear from my heart. And I'm like, whoa, that feels good. One of the things that I noticed the difference is like usually one will, how I can distinct between the two is that like my head voice a lot of times, like I said, will be chaotic, it'll be frantic, it'll be fearful, it'll be like anxious, and it'll be an immediate, like as soon as something happens, the thoughts just react, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm thinking in my mind. And then when I pause for a moment, then I hear the other voice, and it's like, actually it's not as, it doesn't have to be all bad. And then my heart is just like, actually there's another way to look at this. This is another perspective. Let me give you a higher perspective where it's not fearful. And with your heart voice or your intuition, I feel like it, like I said before, it's calm, it's gentle, it's comforting. The thoughts, what you hear from your voice is going to, what you hear from your heart is going to be comforting. It's going to be loving. It's going to be coming out of love. It's not going to be rooted in fear like our ego minds tend to do so often. And so once you're able to distinct between those two voices, then you can get them to work together. And it's like, instead of having your ego mind take the lead and be like, oh my goodness, we gotta freak out and we gotta do this and that, you're aware of it, you listen to it, you observe it, you're like, okay, I hear you. And then with your heart and your intuition, you hear what it has to say, and it's let that take the lead. Like let love guide you instead of fear. Like I'm always saying, that I love Ralph Smart says in a lot of his videos. It's like, let your heart take the wheel, let your heart lead, listen to it, trust it, and your mind is just going to come along for the ride. It's not going to be taking the lead. It's not going to be behind the wheel. It's either going to be in the passenger seat or it's going to be in the back seat. But it's not calling the shots anymore. Because I think both are very important. It's just, which one are you going to let take the lead? Your mind is powerful too. It's very important. And it's good to have it's good to have logic and reasoning and being able to analyze certain situations where you can come up with different solutions. But ultimately, your mind thinks, but your heart knows. So that is the first thing I discovered. And what I did before that, which I think was more of what set up the chain reaction to finding self-love, was I had just made the decision to start eating much healthier than I have been. I really fully acknowledged for myself that I have a problem. I have a junk food addiction. Like addicted to the stimulating flavors and all the salt and the sugar and the fat. I mean, I realized that I was living to eat. I was not eating to live. I wake up and the first thing I'm thinking about, ooh, what am I going to have for breakfast? Or even probably the night before, I'm thinking, ooh, what am I going to eat tomorrow? And I go to the store and I get so excited every week. I'm like, oh, there's all this new ice cream. There's always new vegan stuff. I'm like, there's always, or plant-based. There's always new plant-based ice creams and like treats and cookies and just all kinds of junky things. Like, I love the sugary stuff. And I realized I had a problem. It was an addiction. It was holding me down. And it was consuming my life. I would spend so much time thinking about food and making food and cleaning up after food. I didn't have a lot of energy to do anything else. On top of that, I felt very weighed down. Like, I felt heavy, and I just didn't feel like I really wanted to do a whole lot. I was tired, and I didn't want to like exercise and stuff as much. Like, my hikes were a lot harder. And so I was like, you know what? I got to change. And I'm already really consistent about having smoothies or some kind of fruit, just fruit in the mornings. And I decided to also add having a salad, a big salad every day for lunch. And I committed to that for like a week. And I noticed a difference with like my nails started getting stronger and healthier and breaking less. And my acne started to get better. And I just felt better. Overall, I just felt not so weighed down. And I was like, you know, I like this feeling. And then when I would go back and eat, I also had a problem with overeating. Definitely huge overeater. I would eat way past being full to where I really felt heavy. And so it's kind of hard, at least for me, to overeat on salad or overeat smoothies and fruit. And so I just started eating less. I noticed when I was full right away. And then whenever I would go back to like chips or something really, really salty or really, you know, junky, I just noticed I wouldn't feel good. I noticed the immediate change. Because when you feel one way all the time, it becomes your normal. But then when you change it, like if you start feeling better, then you're really going to notice when you feel crappy. But if you feel crappy all the time, you don't really notice it. That's how it was for me. So I definitely noticed the difference, and my taste buds started changing where it was like, this is too salty. Like, I can't eat this. This is not even enjoyable anymore. Or I would have certain candies and I'm like, this tastes like plastic. I could taste all the artificial chemicals and the preservatives, and it just didn't taste right. And I was like, how the hell did I used to like this? And so it just got easier. I mean, it's only been like maybe, this is like the third week I've been eating healthier. But I noticed that mentally I'm not thinking about food as much. I've simplified a lot, and it's like second nature. It's not something I have to think about. And I just keep a lot of that junk out of the house. Now, occasionally I'll have like chocolate or something, but I know when I'm starting to have too much and I'm starting to feel like, oh, I'm going to get like too sugared out or something. And so I've just been more intuitively eating. And then that kind of led into being more aware of how I'm feeling internally and my intuition and what my body needs or wants. And then I would let myself take naps. I mean, I take naps once in a while anyways, but I would feel so guilty about it. Like I have to constantly be doing something every second. But this time it's just like, I feel like I really need to rest. Sometimes it would only be like 10 minutes and I would feel so much more energized and refreshed. It was just like a little cat nap was all I needed. And so I started incorporating that and just allowing myself whenever I felt like I needed to. And as a result of taking those actions, making those different choices just day by day, I was, meal by meal, making a better choice, not putting too much pressure on myself, but challenging myself for a week. I was like, I know I can do this. I started to feel self-love. It wasn't the other way around where I kept doing like affirmations and trying to convince my mind that I love myself. It's more that I had to take the action first and show myself, which is what a person who loves themselves would do, I would say. And so then I got to the point where, like when I would eat something really crappy and feel crappy, I would think, this doesn't feel like self-love. Would someone who loves themselves, would they keep eating something that literally makes them feel terrible? Like, that is not a very self-loving action. That feels more like self-hate. Another thing that happened was I've always kind of sensed that I probably have a gluten intolerant or sensitivity, but I would kind of go off and on of trying gluten-free diets. This time for the week, I ended up not eating gluten. I just kind of decided not to. And then I had it one night a week later and my stomach was tore up. I know, TMI, like I had the runs everything. And I was like, okay, this does not feel self-loving. Why am I going to keep eating something because I like the way it tastes, but then it's like affecting me in such a negative way? Like the consequences, the negative consequences outweigh any positive consequences of doing this to myself. So then I'm like, okay, I guess I'm giving up gluten. It's been a little challenging, but it hasn't been that bad, honestly. It's like it's getting to the point too where I'm kind of forgetting about it as well. Even though I love bread and pasta and stuff, I've just kind of found different alternatives, healthier alternatives. And so with that, it was also like, okay, well, what would a person who loves themselves do? If they're really, really tired and they have the means to take a nap, why don't they just take a nap? Like that feels like a very self-loving, self-care action to take. But like I said, too, it's like my intuition just really started to open up. It's like my heart was starting to open up and I was more connected with my body. It was like a mind, body, soul connection for the first time. Like there was a huge kind of disconnect there for a while. And then after, like I said, eating healthy and doing meditation, spending more time in nature, like I would take my meals and I would sit outside and just enjoy the view. And I started developing self-love without even trying at first. That wasn't the goal. I didn't even realize that's what was happening. And then the crazy intense part that happened was the first thing I really noticed was I was doing dishes or cooking or something, and I've prioritized doing that before myself. I prioritize everything and everyone before myself, before finding self-love. And then I realized that was not something a person who loves themselves would do either. They wouldn't neglect themselves. They wouldn't be like, I have to take care of everybody else and everything else, but I have to wait, but I never get to myself. That's what I was doing. I never got to myself. And then when I would try to do things that I thought were taking care of myself, like doing yoga and doing meditation and I got to a point where I had too many things on my to-do list that I was trying to do in order to feel self-love by doing these self-care acts, but it ended up just becoming a chore and I didn't enjoy it. So by not trying to do everything at once, because yes, all of those things can help you to feel self-love and feel connected, I had to figure out what was best for me and just choose one or two things. And for me, it was like, well, if I start eating healthier, I had a feeling that was going to change other things in a better way, in a positive way, which ended up happening. And then after that, like I said, meditation and rest were big ones. And I had to go from just constantly doing to really just being. And that is the reason why we are called human beings and not human doers. We're meant to just be ourselves, be present, be in the moment. Get to know yourself. Listen to yourself. Listen to your heart, listen to your head, observe. We're supposed to be doing a lot more observing, which is part of being versus doing. And that is what I discovered was I was very unbalanced in my divine masculine and divine feminine. And if you don't know, everyone on the planet has divine masculine and divine feminine qualities, whether you're a man or woman or whatever you identify as. It doesn't matter. A lot of people can be more towards their masculine side, even if like they're a woman, or more towards the feminine side if they're a man, but we all have both. It's just whatever qualities you end up being more dominant in. And I think the goal is to find more of a balance. I have been way too much in my divine masculine, which is, like I said, not all about, but it's a lot of doing. And then the divine feminine is a lot of being. And divine masculine is more giving. And then divine feminine is more receiving. So it's important to acknowledge both sides and I think really live from both sides in a more harmonious way. But I was way out of balance. And by taking care of myself and like starting to feel that self-love, I got more into my intuition, which is divine feminine, and being and feeling, most importantly. And that's the thing. If you want to feel self-love, the very first step you need to do is first feel. I'm talking feel everything. I know that society has said that people are don't need to be so sensitive. Oh, you're overly sensitive. Oh, you're overreacting. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I got so imbalanced in my divine masculine, because I had been told these things. I am very sensitive. I am an empath. And I had been told that I'm too sensitive and, I need to just get a tougher skin and all of these things. And that, women are weak and they just cry all the time. And so as a child, I started really rejecting my feminine side. I was like, no, I'm just going to basically act like a man, but look like a woman. And I was tough and I was independent and I can do everything on my own. I got way too into that. I wasn't open to receiving anything, to help, love, compliments. I wasn't open to receiving anything. And that made life like 10 times harder, to be perfectly honest. So then I just had a moment when I was cooking and cleaning that I realized I really wanted to be with my husband right there. Like, he was laying in bed. We both were getting over colds and he got it after me. So he was laying down resting and watching like football on his computer, on his laptop. And I just, even though I'm not into football and I wasn't going to watch, I just wanted to lay down with him. And so we just cuddled and I was staring out the window and I was looking at clouds and I was seeing the different shapes in clouds. And all of a sudden, it's like, the only way I could describe it is that it's like the floodgates just opened. Like, it's like my heart was really closed and instantly the door opened and instantly the floodgates just opened. And I had this overwhelming sense of feeling love. It was powerful. It was intense. And so I'm just laying there and I'm cuddling my husband and I'm realizing how much I love him. I feel like I fell in love with him all over again. We've been together about 10 years. Totally madly, or totally just head over heels. Okay. Just totally, fully in love with him. And a little before that, I was finally feeling in love with myself. Not in a narcissistic way, not in like, I'm going to look in the mirror and admire how beautiful I am. It was I feel love for myself. I'm in love with myself on a soul level. I'm in love with my soul for the first time. Because we put a lot of conditions on ourselves for love. We're like, especially even for self-love. Well, whether consciously or subconsciously, we'll be like, I'll love myself when. I'll love myself when I lose weight. I'll love myself when I get the perfect job. I'll love myself when I find my soulmate. And you know what happens? Even when we start getting those things, we still don't feel self-love. We still don't feel worthy. That's another thing. I realized I had very, very low self-worth because I didn't love myself and I didn't allow myself to receive love from others. That was a big realization. So let's stop putting conditions on love for ourselves or to love other people. And once you can stop putting the conditions on yourself, it makes it a lot easier to unconditionally love other people for where they're at and not try to change them and not judge them for what they're doing. You allow them to live their lives. And there are many things you'll learn that you love about them just for being them. That's a beautiful thing. So again, back to the story, I was feeling all this love. And the best way that I can describe it, what came to me in that moment, I remember a lot of scenes from movies and TV shows. Even if I haven't seen them in a long time since I was like a kid, or I've only seen them once or twice, I just have a really good memory with movies and scenes that really spoke to me. Something that was very emotional, something that taught me something, especially about myself. And so what I related it to was I felt exactly like the Grinch. The end of the movie where he says something like, I'm feeling. That's exactly what was happening to me. I was like, oh my God, I'm feeling. Because like as an empath, a lot of us tend to shut down our empathic abilities because it's too overwhelming. We don't know how to handle our emotions, and then on top of that, we're trying to handle other people's emotions. And so we just block it off. We're like, you know what? I'm not getting close to people. I've been hurt. It's too much pain and suffering. So I'm just going to close my heart, and I'm not going to feel anything pretty much at all. I mean, we still, of course, feel some things, but we don't feel them as intensely as we could. And if you're blocking one emotion, like you're trying to not feel or like deny or suppress or reject any emotions, such as guilt or shame, those shadow aspects of ourselves that we lock away because they're deemed unworthy. If you can't acknowledge those parts, those shadow parts of you, which is what I ended up doing a lot with this meditation, and I just took away the distractions. I took away the distractions of social media and TV, and I just was with myself. And I discovered these things, and this is a way to do shadow work, is literally just spending time with yourself without the distractions of other people or news or any noise. It doesn't have to be a full-on, like you got to sit in lotus position and close your eyes. You can sit outside, or you can go for a walk. Maybe even listen to music. I can listen to music and get into a feeling rhythm, like I feel connected to myself, because music speaks to your soul. So yeah, if you want to feel self-love, if you want to feel love in general, you have to feel everything. We did not come down here to only experience certain things. We didn't come down here to only experience all the high vibe, the only good emotions, the joy and the laughter and the bliss. That is a big part of it, and I believe we can be in that more most of the time. But life is going to have experiences that are going to have what we consider lower vibrational feelings, such as sadness and depression and anger and guilt and shame. And that's okay. That's the point. We are supposed to feel the full range of our emotions, because all of it is part of the experience. It doesn't necessarily make us who we are in the sense of like we are just our feelings. We're not our feelings. We're just the soul that's experiencing those feelings. And we're here to fully experience everything in our lives. There are no mistakes. There are no accidents. On a higher level, we chose to do this. I believe we came down here with, I always talk about soul contracts. There's like, you can imagine like there's this holding period or holding area. It's almost like this world is a stage and we're the actors in it, right? I think somebody said that, Shakespeare or something, life is a stage and we're all actors in it. It's very, very true, in my opinion. So it's like we have this holding area, we're going over soul contracts, we're like, it's kind of like a college catalog. We're looking through and we're like, oh, I kind of want to experience this, and I want to do that, and I want to be a photographer, and I want to know what it's like to know love. And the way to know love is to know also what love is not, which is why this is created as a dualistic reality, up, down, black, white, love, hate. So we can experience the full range of it, so we can fully understand both parts of it. That is one of the main points of being here for the experience. So we don't need to feel, sorry, that doesn't make sense. So it's good to feel everything and know that it's all just passing through us. It's a flow. We're not going to be stuck in it forever. You're not going to be depressed forever. You're most likely not going to be happy all the time forever. You're going to have moments in between where you have these highs and these lows. And just embrace both and just observe them and learn what it's teaching you about yourself, about others, and about the world. It's a school. This is essentially a school. And we are ascending faster than ever right now. That's a whole nother topic I'm going to talk about probably in the video I'm going to film right after this. So again, back to the Grinch. I was just like thinking of that scene. He was like, I'm feeling. And then on top of that, I was crying. I was just bawling tears. And then I thought about when he said, I'm leaking. Meaning that he was crying and he didn't know what was going on. And that's how I felt too. I was like, I'm leaking. and I'm feeling. And this is so weird. It was a little uncomfortable at first because I wasn't used to it. I really tapped into my divine feminine. And it was so beautiful. And I just had to allow it to happen. I was rejecting it. I was blocking it. It was always there. The self-love was always there. That's another thing. We are already love. We don't have to try to love ourselves or be loved or do something to be loved. We just already are love. I saw this acronym. I was listening to a video the other day. I saw this acronym called this guy said that he likes to think of soul as an acronym for state of unconditional love. We already are love. We, at our core, all we are is love. It's the perceptions that we pick up over time, the beliefs, systems that we pick up over time, that we adopt, that tell us otherwise, and that program us to believe that we're not loved, we're not worthy of love. But the truth, that's not the truth. And after I had my Grinch moment, I also realized, I think it was the night before, we watched this movie for the first time called Blast from the Past. It stars Brendan Frazier and Alicia Silverstone. It has become my absolute favorite movie of all time. I'm 31 and I finally have my absolute favorite movie of all time. And the reason why it's my favorite movie of all time is because it has taught me so much about myself more than anything. I related so much to both of the main characters. And it was another perfect synchronicity. It was exactly what I needed to watch at that time. And once a week, on the weekends, my husband and I will watch a movie. And we have pretty much decided strictly on comedy because we just love to laugh. We love to joke around and not take ourselves too seriously. And it raises our vibration to watch really funny movies. And lately we've been watching romantic comedies because something about this year, I've heard 2022 is a year of love. It's a numerology. In numerology, it is number 6. I think that might have something to do with love and relationships. We've had Venus in retrograde. Either it's still in retrograde or it's been retrograding or was at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to pretend like I really understand astrology that much. I understand it a bit, but I can't explain it. But anyways, it all resonated that I was feeling so much more love this year. It's supposed to be a year of loving yourself more, having a deeper love for yourself. It's about attracting your soulmates or your partner, or if you're already in a relationship like I am, the love is going to be enhanced. It's going to be a deepening of love, which is what I've experienced as well. And back to this movie, we've been trying to watch a new movie that we have not seen. So not new as in it's just came out. We stopped watching all new movies because they've all been dark and they've been disturbing, and there's not even any comedies that seems like they're coming out. It's all just doom and gloom and just really negative stuff, and it's very depressing, and it's just very lowers your vibration. At least it does for us. And when you are more sensitive and when you are more empathic and you start to feel, you will notice certain movies and things that just aren't going to resonate with you. So I was looking through movies on Google and trying to find something, and I came across this one. I saw the preview. I had seen the preview before and I didn't think it looked that funny, but for whatever reason right now it seemed funny and I decided to go with that movie. And I'm so glad I did. So from the beginning, it was so good. And if you haven't seen this movie, it's an older movie, maybe from the 90s. I'll try to explain the premise without giving the whole movie away. So basically there is this couple who are about to have a baby, and they're living in the 60s, and they are prepared for what could be potentially a nuclear blast. And so they have this shelter, underground shelter, that is like I think kind of like almost an exact replica of their house that's above ground. And it's really big as far as like having enough space for like a living room, kitchen, and all that stuff. And they even have like almost like a little grocery store with different canned goods and dried goods and stuff like that. And then they have a way to grow plants, vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. It was the guy was a genius. I think he was in the science community, and they were really, really rich, which is why they could afford to do all of this and make it sustainable. So one night they're having a party. There's something on the news about war or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And so they had everybody go home, and him and his wife, they went down to their underground bunker, and they were preparing for whatever nuclear thing could happen. And as they went down there, a plane ended up crashing on their house, which then just like blew up and was gone. And luckily they were already underground, but they had like a blast of fire go through the tunnel and down their ladder, so they knew something happened, and they were convinced that it was the war starting. They didn't know anything about a plane, and they didn't have TV like news or anything like that. They only had some way of projecting one show, which was I Love Lucy, like where they could watch the whole series for however long they were down there. So he closed the opening, and he set a lock for it not to open for 35 years because of nuclear radiation could last that long. So he had studied up on how to deliver their child, and he had delivered the baby, and they ended up naming the baby Adam. So Adam, Brendan Frazier, he lives his entire life in this underground bunker. 35 years. He has never seen the sky, the ocean, had fresh air, nothing. And his whole personality and his parents are all stuck in the 60s because they never evolved over the times because they weren't in society. So one day something happens and he is able to go above ground, and he has to go, his parents want him to go get supplies to stay underground again because his dad wandered up, and they were in a bad neighborhood, I think in Hollywood. And so he was really freaked out about, the prostitutes and people pointing guns and just all kinds of crazy things happening because it was a very high crime neighborhood. He thought the entire world was like that, the survivors that were left, and he wanted nothing to do with it. So he sent his son to go get a bunch more food and like whatever they needed to live underground for another however long they set the timer, the locks for. And one of the things that Adam wanted to experience was he wanted a girlfriend, and he had just had a birthday, and he blew out his candles and wished that he could meet a girl. And then this whole thing happened, and he was able to go above ground. And so his parents were like, well, if you meet a girl, then bring her back here and she can live with us. Okay, I know I'm explaining this a lot, but you kind of have to have this premise to understand why it related to what happened to me after this. So he goes up, and So when he goes up, he sees the sky for the very first time. And he is so in awe. Like, he's just walking down the street, he looks up, he sees the sky, and he's like, oh my God, wow, it's amazing. And there's a stranger walking by him, and they look up and they're like, what are you looking at? And Adam's like, the sky. It's the sky. And people were just like, what's in the sky? And he's like, the sky. I've never seen anything like it. And through the whole movie, he's having all of these first experiences that we take for granted because we do it every day and we don't think about it anymore. We don't appreciate it anymore. We don't see the beauty in it anymore. And he has another experience. He goes to the ocean, and he's like, even though it's winter, I think, he just dives right in, and he's just having a blast. And people are looking at him, including Eve, like, what is wrong with him? And everything he says sounds so bizarre. And he's just being honest. He's been, except for the fact that his parents told him to tell people that he was a stranger from out of town on business. And that was it. Nobody was to know that he was from underground and that he'd never been above ground and all of the things that happened. So everything was just bizarre. People thought he was really crazy, but he had all of these really cool skills. So eventually Eve, who rejects him the whole movie, she eventually realizes how much she loves him, but I think she was afraid because she had been hurt in the past and she didn't feel worthy of love, like true love. And so she did everything she could to deny and reject him, even though he loved her through the entire thing. And from the moment they met, he loved her, and unconditionally, no matter, even though she was really mean to him at a lot of times, but he was just so loving. And she eventually realized and found out that he was being completely 100% honest, besides saying he was just from out of town, and that he really did love her, that it was true love. And so at the end, she finally like embraces that and chooses to be with him. And the reason why I can relate to that so much is that same day after watching the movie, my husband and I went to walk our dogs. We're in Arizona. We're in the middle of the desert. There's lots of cacti. And I chose this spot that we're in now because I was driving past it one day and I saw how beautiful the mountains were and how close we were to them, that if we were to park here, our RV, if you don't know, we RV full time. So we move around a lot. And the spot called to me. There's something about it that was so beautiful that I was like, we need to stay there next. So we ended up coming here. So it was the same day that we had arrived here. And we were walking our dogs and the sun was setting. I love sunsets. I take more pictures of sunsets than anything else. I do nature photography. And it was also not the full moon, but the moon was really close to being full, like the day before. And we first walked out of our RV and I look up and I see the moon. And it's just so big and it's just so bright and it's so gorgeous. It was like I was seeing the moon for the very first time in my life. And I, for the first time, really acknowledged how beautiful it was. And it was a perfect scenery where it was just over the mountain. It was bright and it seemed like it was so close. And the sky was this perfect shade of blue. So I just stood there in awe. Just like Adam when he saw the sky for the first time and he just thought it was so amazing. That's how I was feeling. And then we walked our dogs and then when we were coming back, there was the sunset opposite of the moon and the sky was on fire. I didn't even take any pictures. I was just so in the moment. I didn't even have my phone with me. But the sky was this beautiful shade of hot pink, which pink is my favorite color. And it just seemed so beautiful and so unreal. It was like magical and it felt like a dream. It didn't even feel like real life. It almost looked like a painting or like a photograph or like a postcard. It just was so beautiful. And for the first time, I really just stood there in awe again, but of the sunset this time, to the point where I was so overwhelmed with love and the beauty of it that I pretty much went to my knees. Let's just say that. Like I just was kneeling down and I just started crying again, like just bawling tears of joy and love and gratitude for that moment. I felt so happy to be alive, more than probably any moment I can think of in my life. Like I'm sure I did when I was younger, but I really felt so grateful for being alive. And I just kept saying, I love my life. I love my life. Like I'm so in love with my life. This is so beautiful. This moment is so perfect. I have everything I need. I have everything I truly want in this moment. I don't want for anything else right now but this perfect moment of this sunset and with the moon in the background and with my husband and our dogs and this lifestyle of traveling and our home, you know, our RV. It's everything I wanted. I realized, you know, I felt true gratitude and love for everything that I have manifested in my life. For the first time all at once, I really fully appreciate it. Because for the longest time, I was like a lot of other people where I felt this lack and that like, oh, I'll be happier if I get this or I manifest that. And then I would get sad when I wouldn't. And it's like that Sheryl Crow song, I think it's Soak Up the Sun, where she says, and for the first time, I really, really wanted everything I already had. And I was like, I have everything, and I didn't even see it. I took it for granted for the most part. I can enjoy it once in a while, but not fully on a long, sustainable term of loving and feeling gratitude. And that's another thing. We always talk about feeling gratitude, but if you're not feeling all of your feelings, you're not going to feel gratitude as much either. That's another emotion. To fully feel gratitude, you have to feel all of your emotions. And it's worth it. I promise you it's worth it. Even though it's scary at first and it's painful and you think of all of these things that you've done in the past or didn't do, or things people did to you, and you start looking at those shadows, but then you eventually start becoming friends with your shadows. They become integrated as a part of you and you become more whole. All of the parts, the good, bad, ugly that we deem unworthy or unfit, they're all perfect. They're all the way it's meant to be. And they're all a part of you. They're all a part of me and us. And it's a beautiful experience. So I started feeling gratitude for even the things in my life that I thought were so terrible. And one of the major things that I realized, I had this download, that when I was homeless, off and on for years with just my mom, and when I ended up leaving my mom at 16, and I ended up in a youth shelter for, I think, a little less than a year. It was a few months, at least. And I developed a subconscious belief that I wasn't worthy of having like a stable home or love, because I did go through a lot of neglect in my childhood, or that I wasn't worthy of money, that I was always going to be poor, and that like I just had bad luck, and like I was being punished, and God hated me, or I don't know. I just had all of these subconscious beliefs that came up for me in the shadow work. And then what my heart said instead was, you're not a victim. You chose this in your soul contracts before you came. You knew that you needed to be at that youth shelter because you needed to be there. I realized I was friends with pretty much everyone who came in and out, and a lot of kids did. A lot of troubled kids, or, anything from like, abuse and neglect and drug addictions and teen pregnancies, all of those things, which I don't even want to say them as troubled or bad. It just is. They needed help. And I volunteered to help them. I know people didn't understand why I was there. I didn't understand either. I was like this anomaly. I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I was a virgin until I was 18 or 17, whatever. And I just wasn't interested in any of those distractions. And so people were just like, kind of just weirded out. They're like, you seem so normal. Like, why are you here? And then when I tell people my story, they usually react and they're like, why are you not crazy? Or why didn't you fall, victim to your circumstances? And I'm just like, it was a choice. I wasn't meant to go through those things, but I was meant to be at that youth shelter and help those kids, and they helped me. They helped me grow and learn. I learned a lot from them. And I was just there to, give them my advice. I was more of a channeler when I was younger, for advice and wisdom that I would get from the divine, from spirit. And it was exactly what they needed to hear or needed at that moment, or they needed someone to actually listen to them and hold space for them. And I went back and I remembered I have this card that one of the girls there made for me. And I was so in shock because I didn't think that I had touched her that much. Oh, that sounds weird. I didn't think that I had affected her that much. She surprised me in the end. She, as I was leaving the homeless youth shelter, I was going into a transitional living program next, where I'd be working and going to school and paying rent and all that stuff. And so my last day there, she threw me this party where she, I think, cooked or baked a cake for me. She put up all these decorations. She made this huge card. This is probably going to be hard to see with this glitter. I kept it all these years. I mean, I was about 16 when I went into this homeless shelter or youth shelter for troubled kids. And I realized when I think back on it that I didn't accept the love that I got back from those kids. I did not accept it. I didn't feel worthy of it. And so I felt very uncomfortable that she threw me this party because I didn't feel like I was worth having a party for. And I went back to look for this card, and the first thing that I saw in here was, oh, you can't really see that. It says, "We love you." And it's a big card. A lot of people wrote inside of it. You get the gist. So anyways, I'm reading these this card and I'm reading all these messages again. And for the first time, I was able to accept it. I saw how much love was being given to me from the past in that situation. And I read all the messages that said how much they loved me. And I finally accepted it. And I just started bawling tears again, just like a baby, just crying. Because I felt it for the first time. It's like, it doesn't matter when something happens, you can go back and experience it again. Time isn't real. Everything's happening at the same time. So I can go back in a way and accept that love that I rejected before. And that night I could not sleep at all, a wink, because I kept feeling all of the love. It was overwhelming in the sense that my body was just buzzing. It was like tingling. It was like all of this energy just like activating in me. And I was going back and thinking about pretty much I have a really good memory, I'm starting to realize. I started going back and thinking about all the people, the friends, the family, all the relationships I had with people, and realizing how much love they had shown me and had told me. And I was reliving it. And finally, it was like I was going back and I was cashing those checks that I had hidden away. And I'm like, I accept the love. And so I just was feeling it and accepting it. And it was amazing. I wasn't even that tired the next day, even though I didn't sleep. I still was buzzing on energy. I did get really good sleep last night, though. So, yeah. I mean, all that to say that I think when you do finally get to that point of experiencing self-love, it, of course, isn't going to be exactly like my experience. But what I've noticed for me is now I don't sweat the small stuff so much. Like, I'm not so focused on my perceived flaws. Like, I'm not so focused on, like, you know, my skin not being perfect. I have acne and I have acne marks everywhere and I have stretch marks on my arms. Like, all these things that used to really bother me because I was just focused on my appearance. I thought, you know, well, if I have the perfect appearance, you know, subconsciously, like they show in magazines and TV, then I'll be happy and I'll love myself. Then I can love myself. No. I love myself right now exactly how I am, perceived flaws and all. Because I love myself now on a soul level. That is way more deep and meaningful than just loving myself for how I look, because you know looks fade. And I think when you love yourself on the inside, you glow. And you're going to attract more love without even trying. And people are going to recognize it in you. And they're going to see you as more beautiful on the outside as well. When you start taking care of yourself, when you start loving yourself, it shows from the inside out, as cliche as that sounds. And I've noticed that in people. Some people who may not be deemed conventionally beautiful are so beautiful when you see their soul. When you see how much love they have. And it pours out. It has gotten to the point where I just want to love everyone and everything. And everything I do with love behind it. Instead of obligation or fear. It's you live differently when you start living from a place of love in everything that you do. And I feel so connected. I feel so present and grounded. And I'm seeing the beauty, the love, the gratitude for everything around me exactly as it is, not how I think it should be. We get really caught up in our heads and our ego of like, life is supposed to be this way. And when it's not that way, then we reject it and we freak out and we fear it. Instead of accepting it as it is, observing it, learning from it, and then knowing that you have the power to change it if you decide it's not what you want. And you will most likely manifest something even better than what you expected. Or different. But a better different. It may not be exactly what you think you want, but then when you get it, you know that that's even better than what you thought you wanted. Oh. Wow, okay. You know, I feel like that is a good place to end. I really feel like I said pretty much everything that I wanted to say, shared all the details of my story. I know this is going to be a very long video, probably about an hour. That's okay. I'm going to start going with the flow, and if I feel like doing longer videos, I'm going to do it. Whoever the message is for, if they want to listen to it, they're welcome to. As always, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, leave the rest. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you stayed this long, thank you. And I hope you got something from it. And I hope it inspires you to really you can set the intention to find, it's not even like it's hidden, but like you can set the intention to feel self-love. And the path will be shown to you. You're going to have synchronicities. You're going to be led to the right place, the right time, with the right people. The right information is going to come to you. Just trust and believe that, like I said, you are already loved. Just set the intention to feel that, to rediscover it, and to just feel in general so you can connect with yourself. All right, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day or night, and I hope to see you in my next video. And until then, peace and much love. Bye, everyone.